Good morning. Welcome to Sunday. Um, Greetings to those of you I can see on Zoom, and greetings to those of you I cannot see on Facebook and YouTube, and anybody who might be watching later. First, I want to thank Marielle for filling in last week. Um, Unfortunately, there was a technical issue, and that did not get posted to YouTube. This seems to be the year of technical issues for these broadcasts. It seems to be the way it goes. So, um, the last few weeks we have been exploring the Four Noble Truths. Um, the truth of suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering, the truth of the cessation of suffering. Those are the first three. And today we're going to discuss the fourth noble truth, which is the path to the cessation of suffering. And we will get to that after the meditation. Excuse me. So, why don't we start with meditation? So I invite you to find a comfortable, relaxed but alert meditation posture. If you're sitting, I suggest not leaning back in your chair, but sitting upright. Um, Ideally, um, your hips are slightly above your knees, which kind of rolls your back forward a little bit, which is why we have Zafus and meditation cushions. Um, if you're sitting with your back straight, not tense, just letting the natural roll of your hips roll forward a little bit, straighten your lower back. And it feels like a little string at the crown of your head. And just pull that up slightly without tensing the muscles in your neck or shoulders. And tuck your chin in. If you are laying down, I suggest that you keep your arm bent at 90 degrees with your arm on the floor but your hand in the air. That way, if you fall asleep, your hand will come down and wake you. Meditating laying down is a legitimate posture, by the way. I was asked about that fairly recently. The postures are sitting, standing, walking, laying down. And I will do a thing on walking meditation at some point. So I invite you to find a comfortable posture that works for you, in which you can be alert and awake and relaxed. And by entering into a meditation posture, it's a signal from our psyche, our mind to our body that we are entering into something other than what was before, something different from our normal walking around. And gently close your eyes. And let's start with a few slow, deep breaths into the belly. Just to help get connected to the body. Long, slow inhale, and maybe pause for just a split moment, and then a long, slow exhale. Slight pause at the bottom of the exhale. And then the in breath, long, slow. And as you breathe out, let's begin the process of relaxing and softening. Another long, slow, deep breath. And relaxing the muscles around your eyes, just sort of letting your eyes rest in their sockets. Relaxing the muscles in your face, just letting them hang. Your face muscles do a lot of work. Relax, letting your jaw relax. Maybe dropping your mouth open just a little bit to relax your jaw, and then bringing your lips back together. And letting your breathing return to normal. And noticing the sensations of the body in the present moment. The body is always in the present moment. The mind wanders around. The body is always here. Noticing the sensations of your body in contact with the floor. Maybe your feet are on the floor, maybe your legs are on the floor. Noticing what that feels like. And continuing to relax the body on the out breath, relaxing the shoulders, just letting them fall or not holding anything. Letting the stomach muscles relax. A lot of us walk around holding in our stomachs. We're taught to do that as little boys. But just letting your stomach hang and relax. Now aware of the sensations of your bottom on the cushion or the chair. And the contact point of your hands in your lap. What that feels like on your legs where your hands are resting. And on your hands where they're in contact with your legs. And continuing to let the body settle and relax into this moment, into the simplicity of this moment. Now letting your attention, your focus, come to the sensations of the body breathing. And just remain focused there. Some people focus on the sensations of the air moving in and out of the nose. Some people focus on the sensations of the chest or the belly moving up and down or in and out. And for some, it's the focus on just the overall global sensations of the body breathing. Whatever is easy, compelling, works for you. Don't worry if your mind wanders off, you just bring it back. Being with the rhythm of breathing in and out. Sometimes your body will do a long breath. Sometimes your body will do a shorter breath. It's all good. We're just noticing and being with it. Just letting your attention, your awareness rest on the breath. If your mind wanders off, it's okay. The mind does that. Just gently but firmly slide your attention back to your awareness of the body breathing. Again and again, as often as you need to. You may notice right away that you wandered off in thought. You may be off thinking for some period of time before you notice. It's all good. This is a gentleness practice, so just gently return your awareness to the breath. And don't worry about it. You notice that you're thinking, that the mind is engaged in thought. Just notice thinking as a process, something the mind does without getting involved in the content that's shifting all the time. Just noticing thinking. And coming back to the breathing. And as we come to the end of this sitting, just noticing the simplicity of sitting in the present moment. The mind might wander off into things happening, things that may happen. It's just the mind turning its gears. But what's actually happening is we're sitting, simply sitting in this moment. Nothing is happening. We're just here. And may this practice help us bring this quality of presence into our daily walking around lives to help us be more present for the people around us. Less distracted by our own thoughts and concerns. And may this practice enable us to look out at the world through eyes of kindness and compassion, to bring presence and compassion and kindness to all our interactions. May this practice help us radiate kindness and compassion into our households, into our neighborhoods, into our towns, into the world around us, into our interactions with the people close to us and the people we just happen to meet. May the benefits of this practice be a benefit to all beings everywhere. May all beings be happy. May all beings be well. May all beings be safe. May all beings be at ease and at peace, including us. And may we contribute to that out in the world. Thank you for your practice. I have put the usual information in the Zoom chat, how to find these sessions on Zoom, YouTube, and Facebook. A link to my website, my contact information, and you can contact me anytime. Always honored to hear from you. And a link to donation if you feel so moved. There's no requirement for that. There's not even a request for that. But if you feel like it. So, the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, they're like a package. And they come to 12. And 12 shows up. Do some research and do a talk on 12 in spiritual practices. There are 12 steps in Alcoholics Anonymous, 12 Days of Christmas, 12 Disciples, there were 12 initial students of Buddha. Um, there's 108 beads on a mala. That's a division, that's a multiple of 12, but I'll get into that at some other point. When the Buddha first awakened, he wasn't sure what to do. He sat under that tree in what is now Bodh Gaya, India, for some period of time, contemplating what he had learned. And during that time, a group of children who had been bringing him food and water named him Buddha. That's how that came about. And he got up and resumed his wanderings, and he wasn't sure what he was going to teach or how he was going to teach it, but he came upon 5 ascetic monks who he had practiced with before. And when he was practicing with these monks, they were practicing a very, very extreme and austere form of ascetic deprivation, thinking that that was the way to liberation. And they saw him coming, and they realized that he had given that up. And they said to themselves and to each other, here's Gautama, which is the Buddha's name, here's Gautama, he has renounced the teachings and renounced the practices, and when he arrives, we'll just ignore him. We won't even look at him. But when the Buddha arrived among them, his presence and just the sheer presence of his compassion and his light was so compelling that they all literally jumped to their feet and bowed and sat. And they asked him to tell him what he had learned. And he said what he had learned was that he had indulged in sensual pleasures to the extreme and constructed a whole life around that. And he had indulged in deprivation also to the extreme and conducted an entire life around that. There are stories about how he almost starved to death. And he discovered that neither of those brings about the end of suffering. What he discovered was what he termed as the middle way, which is why the Dharma is often referred to as the middle way. And the middle way, the essence of the middle way, he described as the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. The first noble truth is that there is suffering. Buddhism, being the great debate society, has debated what he meant by that, the word dukkha. There is suffering. Life includes suffering. Life includes dissatisfaction. Life includes grief. The second noble truth is that suffering arises and passes. There's a cause. And that the cause is our propensity for clinging to what is shifting. All things that are impermanent, we cling to them like they should be here forever. And therefore, we step out of being able to live in what is essential reality. So the cause of suffering is our clinging to things being other than as they are. And the third noble truth is that there is a sensation to suffering when we learn to not cling to the desire for things to be different. That brings about the cessation of suffering. And then the question becomes, well, how do you do that? Which is when Buddha enumerated what has become known as the Eightfold Path. There's lots of lists in Buddha. There's the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the 5 precepts, the 7 factors of awakening, and on and on. What I've come to believe about that, I'm not sure that Buddha was a list maker, but the Dharma was an oral tradition for 500 years, and I think this is just the way it was organized and passed down. All that aside. The Eightfold Paths are 8 ways of being in the world and 8 ways of approaching your life. And they are right view or right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. There's also a lot of debate around the word right. Some people think it says appropriate or appropriate direction towards. whatever is your cup of tea. And the Eightfold Path should not be thought of as 8 categories or divisions of the path that should be followed or practiced one after another in some sort of numerical order, though some people do that. But they're to be developed simultaneously as far as possible, according to what you're able to do, each individual's capacity. They're all linked together, and each helps cultivate the other. So it's a cultivation practice. It's a cultivation of attitude. It's a cultivation of approach. It's a cultivation of a way of walking in the world. And practice like practicing a musical instrument like the piano or the violin. Because we live in a culture where we tend to be hard on ourselves, and people come back and say, well, I haven't been able to do it. I had this moment of discompassion, and well, fine. We learned something from that, and we're practicing. I got a little agitated with somebody yesterday, and apologized. But I have to practice. We all do. So the points to cultivating this brings us in contact with what is described as the 2 wings of the Dharma, which are expressed in the Eightfold Path. And the 2 wings are compassion and wisdom. And these are 2 qualities that we should develop equally. Because compassion without wisdom can lead to kind of codependence. And wisdom or intellect without compassion can lead to a kind of ethic-deprived behavior. So we're working on compassion, which includes love, charity, kindness, tolerance, self-compassion, be kind to ourselves and others, and wisdom, which is the intellectual piece, the qualities of the mind, the nature of thought, how we relate to emotions, pleasant and unpleasant or neutral, how we relate to our thoughts. And the Eightfold Path points to a path toward a balance. And the Eightfold Path has also been frequently divided into 3 sections, which is what I'm going to talk about today. And that is ethical conduct, mental discipline, and wisdom. So first, in ethical conduct is the concept of right speech. Don't tell lies. Lots of people have a gray area with the truth. And that includes not like backbiting and slander and talking about people behind their backs in ways that would bring about pain or disharmony, not being harsh or rude or impolite or malicious, using abusive language and attitudes. And this also includes how we talk to ourselves. Right speech includes how we talk to ourselves. And it encourages us to notice when we're being unkind and discompassionate, and it encourages us to be kind and compassionate rather than harsh and judgmental with ourselves. Because we all have the thought stream going around in our head. And one of the fruits of mindfulness practice is we get to notice what it's doing. And we can more easily see when it's taking us to a discompassionate place. The second under ethical conduct is right action. We start with do no harm. Don't harm people, don't harm animals, don't harm anybody. There are various approaches to this. I was on a retreat at a retreat center called Land of Medicine Buddha in California. And they were doing some construction. They were constructing new dormitories. And there was actually this small group of monks digging up the worms and bringing them somewhere else, right? And putting them like in a place on the ground so they wouldn't be destroyed by the construction. That's one way to go about it. Most of us don't go to that length. Though I did rescue a mouse from my cat, and the mouse bit me, so that didn't go very well. Right action, do no harm, refrain from stealing, refrain from dishonesty, refraining from any kind of sexual conduct that causes harm. Right livelihood is also under ethical conduct, making a living in a way that causes no harm. And it's up to each of us to determine what that means. Under mental discipline, we start with right effort, that fold of the Eightfold Path, which involves cultivating the ability to speak clearly, in my case today, cultivating the ability to recognize states of mind and patterns of thought that do not serve our well-being. And this is another one of the fruits of mindfulness, because as I keep saying, the mind wanders around all the time. But we become better at noticing when it's playing the bad, stupid, and wrong station, as my friend Steve used to say. When we have made a mistake or things haven't gone the way we want, and the mind defaults to some version of "you're not okay," we're cultivating the ability to notice that and move away from it more quickly. This is especially important, as I keep saying, in a culture that honors being hard on ourselves and honors perfectionism. Perfectionism is a myth. Um, the people who make Persian rugs as a spiritual practice, sort of like the way the Zen masters sew the rakusu, um, they leave one end of the rug frayed on purpose because only God can create what's perfect. So right effort means stepping away from the perfectionism, cultivating the ability to notice when we're falling into these traps and the hindrances, which I'll talk about at some point. And it takes effort. It's not the way we're wired. There's actual evolutionary biology about how the mind defaults to negative, and in this culture, we get messages from our earliest childhood that do this or you're not okay. So what's being suggested here, and what I'm suggesting, is an alternative to that. Remembering we are in fact okay, it just didn't go well this time. And then right mindfulness, also under the heading of mental discipline. Cultivating mindfulness, which is what we do here on Sunday mornings, which is the art of paying attention and learning to accept our experience, whatever it is. It's really simple. It's not more complicated than that. But we're not wired for that way culturally. So the mind wanders around. The mind generates thoughts the way the digestive system generates gastric juices, the way the pancreas generates insulin. The mind generates thoughts. No shame in that. No harm, no foul. We have to train the mind. And it's not altogether different in dynamic from training a puppy to heel. When the puppy wanders, we're walking around, you're training your puppy to heel. You're walking down the street with your puppy on a leash, and it wanders off, and you gently pull it back. Firmly, but gently pull it back. And you keep doing that over and over again. You don't scream at it, kick it, hang it up by the leash, none of that. It's all gentleness. So it's the art of paying attention and learning to accept our experience and being gentle with ourselves when we notice that we are not doing that. And just bringing ourselves back to that as best we can. As best we can. I will do this better tomorrow because conditions and causes will be different tomorrow. I may have been better with this yesterday because causes and conditions are different yesterday. But we are cultivating. This is a cultivation practice. And then right concentration, which involves what I've come to refer to. By the way, I got that from Gil Fonsdale, the manual labor of mindfulness meditation. The ongoing noticing when you wander out and coming back, off and coming back. And learning to notice when the mind has wandered off in a way that does not promote your well-being and that of others. Noticing when we've wandered into perfectionism, notice when we've wandered into self-doubt or self-loathing. And just learning to recognize in subtle and obvious ways when we're going down those roads and coming back and just saying, don't want to go there, and bringing your mind to focus on something else. The wisdom part of the Eightfold Path involves right thought, kind of selflessness, which is not to be confused with not taking care of yourself. Okay. But recognizing that we are not the center of the universe, focusing on love and compassion, nonviolence, and using those attitudes or elements as the starting off point for how we conduct ourselves in the world. And finally, right view, or right understanding, depending on which translation you're into, which is simply seeing things as they are, not as we prefer them to be, which is problematic for a lot of people. You know, something happens in front of us, and we reach back into that cavernous maw behind our eyes and pull out a similar experience and put it in front of us. And now we're seeing it through that. That's a filter through which we see the world. And right view is learning to not do that. And it takes a lot of practice and it takes a lot of work. I had a therapist for years who would, when I would go off on some sort of thing, he would say, what do you know that you can observe is happening right now? Not what am I attaching to it, not what narrative am I attaching to it, not what feelings am I attached to it that I reject or cling to. What can I observe? Seeing things as they are, without all the filters and narratives and preconceived notions that typically become the lenses through which we see the world. That takes a lot of practice and a lot of work. Understanding that life does include grief and learning to be okay with that as a natural process and not rejecting parts of our experience that are hard and not clinging to the parts of our experiences that we like, because it all comes and goes. And to the degree that we are rejecting our grief, our pain, our sadness, we're actually rejecting ourselves and making it harder for us to love ourselves and navigate in the world. And when we do that, things that happen around us and what we experience can tend to become a referendum on whether or not we're okay. But what if we accept that we are okay, we're just having a difficult time right now? We're feeling uncomfortable right now. Grief is uncomfortable, extremely sometimes. Sadness is uncomfortable. Anger is uncomfortable. But right view suggests learning to accept that we just have these things. I get to see the Dalai Lama. I'm very lucky. When he came to Mountain View, California in 2001, sold out the amphitheater. Um, he taught for 3 days, and on the third day he did a Q&A. And somebody asked him, well, what about anger and frustration? And she just kind of shrugged and said, well, I experienced those things. That's the right view on our experience. And right view also involves understanding impermanence. It might even start there, that all things come and go. Everything is impermanent. There's a chant in the Theravadan tradition, all things are impermanent. They arise and they shift away. Those with knowledge of this have great happiness. They actually chant that over and over again. Impermanence, everything is shifting and fading and arising, especially states of mind, which are constantly shifting and arising and passing. I felt really agitated at one point yesterday, and I directed that as somebody who didn't deserve it. And I had to call, make amends, and all that. But not too long after that, my entire attitude had shifted, right? Because it just does all the time. And remembering that we are okay in the middle of this storm. What the Darwin refers to as the worldly winds, which I can give a talk on at some other point. There are praise and blame, the things that make us feel good about ourselves, the things that make us feel less than good about ourselves. But we can stand in the center of that and be okay and notice that that's going on and acknowledge what that feels like and remember that it's temporary, it's impermanent. We are always walking through a tunnel. We are never walking into a cave where everything stops. So, these are sort of an aggregate view on a way to approach life. And it works for me. This is the best I can, I can't tell you what works for you. Um, but I say again, as I often say, this is a gentleness practice. This is not an opportunity to say, oh my God, I didn't get it right, which is something that we naturally do in this culture. These are things sociologist Max Weber referred to as ideal types. An ideal type is something you walk towards. You may or may not get to it, but you walk towards it. These are ideal types that we walk towards. These are the ways that we orient ourselves. It's like in the 12 steps. The third step in the 12 steps says we make a decision to turn, and in that language, towards God, or what one friend of mine calls the great whatever, and walk that way. This is very similar in that we make a decision to turn towards these and we walk that way and we do the best we can day to day, and it's good enough. So I invite you to be kind and gentle with yourself, and thank you for your kind attention. Any questions, comments? Apparently not. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I didn't hear you well.
I appreciate your emphasis on gentleness. That resonates with me today. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's so easy to be hard on ourselves. It is so easy to be hard on ourselves. We're taught to do it. Okay? From the time we're little kids, we live in a culture where we discipline children by making them feel bad. I mean, wow. And then we live with the consequences of that later. Um, so, yes, um, be kind and gentle. This is the most important thing I will ever say in any of these teachings or sessions. Be kind and gentle with yourself all of the time. There are people I've met, especially in the 12-step thing, that the first time I say that to them, they act like I'm like have a weevil eating my eyebrow. I stole that line from Tom Wolfe. But it may be the most important thing that we can teach ourselves and each other. So I'm really glad to be back here. I'm really glad that my camera didn't crash for the first time in the last 3 times I've done this. All things are impermanent, including technology. So thank you. I'll see you all next time.
Thanks, Karen.